Hello, people of the internet, it's Amanda, and as always, it's that time of the week where we do another Miman video. So for today's video, I am here to talk about Miman Keisatsu Midnight Runner episode 7 starring Nakajima Kento and Hirano Sho. And today's episode definitely delivered a lot of theories, at least for a couple of people who I've seen on Twitter. So aside from the usual recap/review of the episode, I will also be talking about those theories and at the same time my own theories about where the story is heading. As always, there are going to be spoilers for this particular video, so if you haven't seen the episode yet or you're not up for any type of spoilers, then please click off. But if you're game, you want to talk it out, you know the drill, just keep on watching. Now, as always, we're going to start off with a recap of the episode first. So we basically just jump right back into the events from episode 6, where the Tenma siblings basically just held some of the members of the police academy as hostages because they want to seek justice for their father who was wrongly accused about a series of murders that happened 9 years ago. Now, in the end of episode 6, so Kai remained in the hostage room, and then Jiro was sent out to sort of like carry the mission outside of it to learn the truth about the entire situation. As soon as Jiro comes out and starts his report on the situation, Katanasaka Sensei, played by Issei Yusuke, jumps right into the situation and figures out immediately that there's a plot going on between Kai and Jiro and whatever it is that's been happening inside the room. So given that, he offers himself to be an exchange hostage with a SAT officer that was sent in early on in episode 6, and so that's where the entire investigation happened. Now, inside the hostage room, so basically, Katanasaka is doing his profiling with Kai, and they were trying to analyze the different aspects of the 3 cases that were involved in the serial murders in order to help out the siblings whose father is still in jail and is sick and ultimately is bound to die inside the jail cell without reaching justice for the wrongful accusation. Now, what's interesting throughout this is it definitely highlighted Kai and Jiro's characters and their differences as to how they operate and why, quote-unquote, they sort of work complementary towards one another, even if they're not directly together. So I've said this in episode 6 before, and also when we talked about episode 4 and 5 respectively, and how that sort of shows us their personality and the way they take in things as separate characters. The speeding ticket that Oikawa gave the man back when a couple of years ago serves as an alibi for the 3rd case, which is a case involving the detective that was also killed in light of the situation or in light of serial murders. Now, for the 2nd case, so there is supposedly another alibi that pinpoints Akio-san, or the suspect, in another location, which doesn't which sort of would help in terms of building a case in terms of the 2nd case. Now, what's interesting is later on we find out through Jiro's investigation that apparently the person Murata Miki, who the siblings mentioned, is actually someone who their father was having an affair with, and the alibi was supposedly in this flip phone where they were together the night that Akio-san's wife was killed by the serial murderer. That Jiro was being pursued by members of the police as well, and they had a confrontation where they were looking for evidence, and it seems like they really are working to towards not having evidences or just trying to cover up a lapse in what they did because of something that they're trying to cover up in a bigger scale. And so Jiro gets into this very like intense fight scene as usual, but then because of the entire encounter, so he reports back to Kai saying that the flip phone was actually broken in the middle of basically everything else that's happening. Now, with that, so slowly, even if initially the siblings were having hope that their father was going to get the justice because of all the leads that they're getting, it suddenly turns sour because details upon details started happening that crumbled down to them. It sort of like it gave them false hope, and then everything just tumbles down. Guy did well in terms of handling the situation. He was able to calm them down, and eventually, they allowed themselves to be arrested given what happened. And with Jiro, he was also very much frustrated with the outcome of this case because they weren't able to basically save anyone. Like the siblings also received word that their father is getting worse, and I couldn't exactly pinpoint if their father eventually died already inside the cell or that he was really reaching a very critical point. But it was seen that it seems like their father eventually died when they received a phone call about it. So that's why things went in a spiral for them. But again, don't quote me on that just yet because I haven't seen the episode subbed. But based from my understanding, I felt like their father already passed away, and therefore that's why things really hit a wall for them with the evidence being gone, and then their father going in a critical route. So there's that. Now, what's interesting to me is that at least these two characters, Kai and Jiro, started to give these people hope. Like the trend since the first episode is that these are people who do not trust the police because of something that they've done to them or their families in the past, or they didn't really show them enough passion to pursue something that was very important because of how like the system works. Like these are quote unquote insignificant people as compared to say a case involving some big shot or something like that. So I feel like here that's the encompassing theme for the past couple of episodes is that helping people, like it's going back to the duty of the police to help people, and these two, given that they're still students, they definitely have that to get that to a T, and despite the fact that they've failed this particular case, so it's still allowed for the siblings to have a little bit of hope that there is a way to solve this. Now, what's sad is at the end of the episode, so again, there's no guto pa in this particular episode, or the thing that they usually do at the end, and there are no Kai glasses that were broken yet again for this particular episode. So I feel like they have to catch up on that by episode 8. Like they have to break at least 3 glasses from Kai, and they have to have like just 2 gutopa moments for the next episode to make it up for that. But anyways, with that said, so let's move on to my actual review of the episode. Again, one highlight that I would want to point out is this episode is very well acted, especially with the guests, and the dynamic, like even for Nakajima Kento and Hirano Sho respectively. So the balance of acting that went on to it, considering that there are a lot of emotions happening, and this is really more like they played off with a lot of comedy in the early episodes, but this one, they only have like 1 or 2 bits at the beginning, but this is really more of like a very serious and emotional and action-centric episode, which definitely exuded the vibe of an actual proper police drama without losing its charm completely, which I absolutely like. I think for this particular episode as well, it's kind of interesting to see that they failed, because it just kind of sucks for you to continuously just do well every single time. I'm not saying that they didn't fail early on in the other cases that they've handled, but it's really more of like they have small wins, or like they're very determined by the end of that or in the middle of all those things. But for this particular one, you can definitely sense or feel the disappointment, the frustration of how they want to chase this case further, because technically nothing really came out of the situation or their investigation or anything like that. So in the end, you feel the frustration of these characters. Like, it's not just games anymore for them. And it's not one of those things where you can just go ahead and defy what's happening with your seniors and everything like that and do this your own way. But it's them trying to be a lot more responsible with their actions and becoming proper policemen. Episode also incited a lot of theories. So there's this one theory, I'm not gonna claim credit for it because I just saw this on Twitter, where there is a theory that Jiro broke the phone intentionally because he didn't want the siblings to find out that their father was actually having an affair. So we learned from episode 6 that they're a very close-knit family, that they believe that their father wouldn't kill their mother because of how much he loves her. And so there is that theory that because of Jiro's nature, like, he's definitely a lot more emotional, or he understands the feelings of people a lot more than Kai's more logical side. So there is that theory that he intentionally broke the phone, and that's why he was a lot more persistent in finding evidence for these cases, is because he wants to find another way to help this family without necessarily them breaking that image of their father. Their theory is for Tachibana, which is one of their classmates who's seen just what do you call this? Just help monitoring the situation, because they were the ones who saw that Jiro and Kai was also being held captive at the beginning in episode 6. And she seems like a very sharp character. Like, she seems very involved and invested when they decided to do the mock investigation. So I decided to look back a couple of episodes just to see what might be her motivations for this particular one, since there are theories, like we saw at the end of this episode, that she has the secret flip phone that she has with her as well, that might have something to do with this case. So I looked back at her character, and in episode 1, she said that her father is a police officer. So it might just show why she entered the police academy in the first place. But another reason that a lot of people are pointing at, and I think for me it's the same thing as well, is that she has something to do with the case from 9 years ago. Her father might be the police officer / the detective that might have been the victim for the third case for the series of serial murders. Like, maybe her father is on investigating and he has to be taken care of, and that's the reason why. Or one more possible theory is that she's probably classmates or friends with the first girl that was the victim for this particular case. And I feel like if we look at the evidences laid down for us here, so the third case already has an alibi provided for that, given the speeding ticket, so that's out. The second one is the smartphone, or the evidence of the affair, so there's that. So I think it's much more possible that Tachibana is classmates or friends with the first girl from the first case, and the smartphone that she has probably contains evidence as to who is or are behind the murders that were happening 9 years ago. Another theory that kept popping up, given the promo visuals that we got a couple of days back. Now, this is unclear as to whether or not this is going to happen in the next episode, or is it going to happen later on, because I think the series is about to wrap up in at least 3 episodes more or something like that, is that Yanagida, which is played by Harada Taizo, who I adore so much. It's quite interesting to see him in a very serious role, especially since I'm so used to him in Shabekuri's character and Issei Yusuke's character are the other buddies for this particular drama. And there was this part here in the trailer where it says that, like the people who are seeking the truth are finally getting close. And we see him confronting Katanosaka at gunpoint. And there are a couple of theories here as well that he might be one of the criminals or the actual criminal who are doing all the murders, because if you remember in episode 6, so when Katanosaka was trying to investigate this years back, he sort of like told him to just leave it at that. But it seems like a bit far-fetched to me considering their relationship throughout the episode. Like it was seen that they were very close and very concerned with one another, and he seems like a very straight-laced type of official. So I do have like another explanation for this particular one, which I'll be talking about later today. Also in relation to the fight that Jiro and Kai have. So this one is very interesting because we've often seen them, work well with one another, and Jiro is really more of like a character that just follows Kai's opinions on things. Kai was confronting Jiro about telling the truth, and then Jiro just starts punching him and saying that he should stop. So I have a lot of theories surrounding that as well. Like for example, so what do you think about the other theories? Number one, again, as I mentioned, I'm leaning more toward Tachibana being classmates with the first victim of the case. So maybe the phone has some evidence or some sort as to what exactly happened to her. Number two, I do feel like Yanagida won't be the criminal and that confrontation is a lot more than what we see on the surface. So maybe he's just trying to still protect Katanosaka or maybe he suspects him as being the one who kidnapped the chief officer who was in charge of this entire thing, because he seemingly is the one who's just corrupt and just controlling everything behind the scenes. So maybe Katanosaka just had enough of that and he flips over and tries to take things his own way, and that's why Yanagida was trying to pursue him. So that's a more feasible explanation for me rather than the idea of, Yanagida being the criminal himself. Like I do feel like these two characters also portray a lot of parallels between Jiro and Kai's dynamic. Like it shows that, the buddy that you build in the police academy is somewhat going to still be your buddy even if you're way past into your career, and that even if you're in different departments. So that will still translate, and it would just be kind of a shame if they just like break all of that to antagonize this other character that seems to come out of nothing. Like I don't think so far that anything foreshadows the fact that Yanagida is indeed a villain. So it would just feel kind of off if that happens. I wish they just stick to this overarching theme of the bigger players in the field that are behind all these like crazies that are happening, and they're the straight-laced, more professional characters in here that's trying to correct all these wrongs. So, and then lastly, for what Kai and Jiro is fighting about, I feel like it has something to do with Jiro probably concealing some evidence from Kai, mainly because of how he knows how Kai would operate. Like Kai would probably operate logically, but then for Jiro, it's definitely, I feel like, a character development for both of them, trying to learn that you can't just be extremes of what you're good at. Like you can't just be logical all the time, or you just can't be emotional all the time. And that, I think, would be a pivotal point in both their characters when they start fighting, to realize that as much as they complement each other, they also have to learn from one another in terms of skills and not just necessarily rely on one another all the time. So I think that's where that's headed. But anyway, so with that said, so it's pretty interesting where we're getting at. so far with all these things. I feel like finally we're getting a sense of, I think so far they did a good job in terms of like building up these characters first and introducing to us who they are and their personalities and their tendencies before they jumped right into this bigger arc of them actually pursuing and handling a very specific case that would translate more into just 1 or 2 or 3 episodes, but would wrap up the entire thing. I think that's very interesting to me. And again, this is a lot more of that serious type of episode that that definitely feels a lot more of like the police vibe that we're getting. Now, some of the highlights that I would want to point out is, again, I think Nakajima Kento really did well in terms of portraying the more emotional side of this episode. The way that he was negotiating, the way that he was acting. I feel like I want to highlight that for this particular episode. And then for Hirano Sho, he had a lot of action scenes for this particular for this episode, and again, as always, it was just pretty interesting to see him in that kind of role. And I mean, for Kento, he has a lot of experience playing characters that in dramas and in movies, so I have to give it to him that I feel like his acting definitely stepped up a bit for this particular series. And then for Hirano Sho, I would definitely want to see him in more action-centric roles in the future, given how much I feel like he's doing a good job in pulling this role off. So with that said, so tell me down in the comments below what you think. This video is a lot longer than I intended, mainly because I think it really dabbled on more on theories as to what's going to happen next. But with that, so tell me down in the comments below what you think. Do you have your own theories about this as well? If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about this again in the next one. Bye!